My girlfriend cheated on me with a millionaire after her family called me trash. Was I not enough? I'm Caleb, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, blindsided when Madison betrayed me with Grayson Whitmore. I hit rock bottom, but turned betrayal into power. In May 2025, Madison came crawling back, broke and desperate, after Grayson's fall. Watch this true infidelity story of heartbreak, revenge, and redemption. Can you ever forgive a cheater? Some betrayals don't just break your heart. They burn everything you've built to the ground, leaving you to rise from the ashes or crumble into nothing. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and I thought I'd found the love of my life with Madison Harper until she ditched me for a millionaire after her family called me worthless trash right to my face. I've been in love with cars since I was a kid. Growing up on the east side of Detroit, I didn't have much. Hand-me-down clothes, a single mom working double shifts at the diner, and a tiny apartment where the heat barely worked in winter. But cars, they were my escape. I'd spend hours on YouTube, watching videos about V8 engines, turbo kits, and custom mods, sketching designs in my beat-up notebooks during math class. When I turned 15 in 2019, I begged my Uncle Ray to let me work at his auto shop in Hamtramck, a gritty little spot that fixed up cars for regular folks. He tried to talk me out of it, said I should focus on school, maybe try to get a scholarship. But I was done seeing Mom come home exhausted, her hands cracked from washing dishes all day. I wanted to help, and I wanted to be around cars. Uncle Ray finally gave in, but I started at the bottom, sweeping floors, cleaning tools, running errands for the older mechanics. That shop became my school, my Harvard, my everything. After school, I'd hop the bus straight there, still in my beat-up sneakers, and get to work. The older guys like Big Tony and Carlos, saw I was serious, so they started teaching me the ropes. By 16, I could do an oil change faster than most of the pros. By 17, I was helping with full engine rebuilds, getting my hands dirty on V6s and straight sixes. When I turned 15 in 2019, I begged my Uncle Ray to let me work at his auto shop in Hamtramck, a gritty little spot that fixed up cars for regular folks. He tried to talk me out of it, said I should focus on school, maybe try to get a scholarship. But I was done seeing Mom come home exhausted, her hands cracked from washing dishes all day. I wanted to help, and I wanted to be around cars. Uncle Ray finally gave in, but I started at the bottom, sweeping floors, cleaning tools, running errands for the older mechanics. That shop became my school, my Harvard, my everything. After school, I'd hop the bus straight there, still in my beat-up sneakers, and get to work. The older guys like Big Tony and Carlos, saw I was serious, so they started teaching me the ropes. By 16, I could do an oil change faster than most of the pros. By 17, I was helping with full engine rebuilds, getting my hands dirty on V6s and straight sixes. I loved every second of it. The smell of motor oil, the roar of an engine firing up after a long night of work, the satisfaction of fixing something no one else could. One day, this guy rolled in with a clapped-out Mustang GT, a 5 model that other shops had given up on, saying it was a lost cause. They told him to scrap it, but I saw something in that car. I begged Uncle Ray to let me take a crack at it. For 2 weeks, I stayed late after my regular hours, sometimes till 2 a.m., researching forums on my cracked phone, trying different fixes, tearing apart the engine and putting it back together. When I finally got it running, that Mustang purred like it was fresh off the lot, maybe even better. Word spread fast after that. If you had a performance car that needed serious work, Uncle Ray's was the spot, and I was the kid to ask for. I graduated high school in 2022 with decent grades, mostly 'cause mom rode my ass about homework. But college wasn't in the cards for me. I went to trade school instead, got all my certifications, and started working full-time at a shop in Dearborn. That's where I met Madison Harper in the fall of 2020. She rolled in with her BMW 328i, a 20th birthday gift from her daddy. Nothing special, just a standard model with a busted alternator. I could tell right away she wasn't like the other rich girls who'd come in with their fancy cars, acting like I was invisible 'cause I had grease on my hands. Madison was different, or so I thought. She actually listened when I explained what was wrong with her car, asked questions like she cared, and even laughed at my dumb car jokes. You know, the kind that only gearheads get. She had this smile, man, like she could light up the whole shop, and her vibe wasn't stuck up at all. We started dating a few weeks later, and I fell hard. Looking back now, I should have seen the red flags from day one. Madison was a Harper, one of those old money families from Grosse Pointe, the kind who owned half the real estate in Metro Detroit. I think she saw me as her little rebellion. You know how rich girls sometimes date the bad boy to piss off their parents? Except I wasn't even a bad boy, just a working class guy with big dreams and a knack for fixing cars. Those first couple of years were actually pretty great. Madison would bring me lunch at the shop, usually some fancy salad from Whole Foods, and hang out while I worked on side projects. I'd started doing custom jobs on the weekends, saving every penny I could. I had this vision of opening my own place, not just another repair shop, but a high-end custom garage, the kind of spot where guys brought their Ferraris and Lambos for serious work. I wanted to call it Brooks Performance, something to make mom proud, you know? Madison seemed all in, always talking about how she believed in me, how I was gonna make it big. She'd say stuff like, "You're gonna be the best in Detroit, Caleb. I know it." But her family? Holy hell. They were a nightmare. Imagine every stereotype about old money snobs. Then crank it up to 11. That was the Harpers. Her dad, Mr. Big Shot real estate developer, would grill me at their fancy family dinners in their Grosse Pointe mansion, asking condescending questions like, "So Caleb, how's your little car hobby going? Ever think about getting a real job?" Her mom was worse. She'd go on and on about how her friend's son was killing it at med school, or how her cousin's husband just made partner at some big law firm downtown. Every time I'd try to talk about my work, like the 1967 Shelby GT 500 I restored that got featured in a local car magazine, they'd just smile those fake smiles and change the subject. I kept my cool though. I wasn't there for them. I was there for Madison. By 2024, I was 24, and I'd built a solid rep in the Detroit car scene. I had high-end clients coming to me through word of mouth. Guys with Porsches, Corvettes, even a couple of classics. Madison and I had been together for 4 years at that point, and we'd talked about the future. Marriage, kids, the whole 9 yards. I was saving up for a ring. Nothing crazy, just something I can afford with my own hard-earned money. I had this whole plan to propose once I secured a loan for my shop, thinking we'd build our life together. But then, everything went to hell. Every year, the Harpers hosted this fancy charity gala for some Save the Whatever Foundation at their estate. I'd always found excuses to skip these things. Nothing's worse than being surrounded by trust fund babies who think changing a tire is adventurous. But in August 2024, Madison insisted I go, saying it was important to her family that I be there. Red flag number 1, and I missed it completely. I busted my ass that week to finish a client's Porsche GT3 early so I could make it. I even bought a new suit from Men's Warehouse, nothing fancy, but a step up from my usual Walmart clearance rack stuff. I spent 3 hours watching YouTube tutorials on how to tie a proper Windsor knot, trying to look the part. The gala was at this ridiculous mansion just outside the city. Fountains in the driveway, valet parking, and enough crystal chandeliers to blind you. I felt out of place the second I walked in, but I was trying to play it cool for Madison. That's when Grayson Whitmore made his grand entrance. This guy pulls up in a brand new Porsche GT3 RS, shark blue, straight off the showroom floor. Probably never even seen a speck of dirt. He walks in wearing a $12,000 suit. I looked it up later, and a watch that cost more than my yearly income. With that trust fund baby haircut that screams, "My daddy's lawyers have lawyers." Turns out, his family owned Whitmore Luxury Automobiles, a chain of high-end dealerships across 3 states. The same dealerships that sometimes sent us cars they couldn't fix. The irony stung. Madison's mom practically sprinted across the room to greet him. "Grayson, darling, we didn't know you'd be here," she said. Total lie. I found out later they'd invited him on purpose. Next thing I know, they're steering Madison toward him, making sure they're seated together at dinner, while I'm stuck at the other end of the table, next to some cousin who kept talking about her summer in the Hamptons. I could feel the eyes on me. Madison's family, her friends, all these rich folks whispering behind their champagne flutes, probably laughing at the grease monkey who thought he could fit in. Dinner was torture. I had to sit there, sipping overpriced wine I didn't even like, listening to Grayson brag about his latest business ventures, all funded by his daddy's money, of course. "Just acquired a new dealership in Chicago," he says, swirling his glass like he's in a damn commercial. "Planning to expand into the exotic car market. It's all about the luxury consumer mindset." I nearly choked on my tiny-ass portion of some French dish I couldn't pronounce, coq au vin or some nonsense. This guy wouldn't know real car work if it bit him in the ass, but Madison's parents were eating it up. Her dad kept saying crap like, "That's the kind of forward thinking the industry needs, Grayson." Her mom chimed in with, "You really understand what it takes to succeed, unlike some people who are just stuck in the garage." She shot me a look, her lips curling in a sneer, and I knew exactly who she meant. The whole time, Madison was different. She barely looked at me, her eyes glued to Grayson as he droned on about his vision for the luxury car market. She laughed at his dumb jokes, like when he said, "People who still buy American cars must love losing money," as if my entire career fixing Mustangs and Corvettes was a joke. Normally, Madison would have jumped in, talked up the custom work I'd done, bragged about the Shelby GT500 I restored that got featured in a local car mag. But that night, nothing. She just sat there nodding, giggling, her hand brushing Grayson's arm a little too often for it to be innocent. I felt my chest tighten, that text from July flashing in my mind, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." After dinner, they had dancing, some fancy ballroom stuff with a live string quartet. I'm not much of a dancer, unless you count the victory dance I do after nailing a tricky transmission rebuild. But I tried for Madison. We started dancing, her hand in mine, but I could tell she was distracted, her eyes darting toward Grayson across the room. Then, like something out of a damn movie, Grayson cuts in, all smooth with his prep school ballroom moves. "May I?" he asked, not even looking at me, like I was just some obstacle. Madison didn't hesitate. She let go of my hand, gave me this fake little smile, and let him pull her away. She didn't even look back. The rest of the night was pure hell. I stood by the bar, nursing an overpriced whiskey I couldn't afford, watching them dance, laugh, whisper to each other like I didn't exist. Madison's mom hovered around them, snapping pictures with her phone, cooing about what a gorgeous couple they made. Her dad clapped Grayson on the back, saying loud enough for me to hear, "Now that's the kind of man Madison deserves. Not some dirty grease monkey who'll never amount to anything." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. each one a fresh cut. I wanted to storm over, tell them to shove their money where the sun don't shine, but I didn't. I just stood there, the whiskey burning in my throat, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. On the drive home, Madison was silent, staring out the window of my beat-up Mustang, the same car I'd poured my heart into fixing up years ago. I tried to lighten the mood, cracking a joke about Grayson being a walking stereotype with his daddy's money vibe. Normally, she'd laugh, maybe throw in a jab of her own. But this time, she turned to me, her eyes cold, and said, "He's actually really smart, Caleb. Maybe you could learn something from him, like how to actually succeed in life." Her words cut deeper than anything her parents had said all night. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She didn't answer, just turned back to the window, leaving me in a silence that felt heavier than the whole damn gala. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Madison started pulling away even more, always busy with some charity event or social function. Events where Grayson always seemed to be too. Just a coincidence, she'd say, but I wasn't buying it. I kept replaying that text in my head, the way she'd laughed with him at the gala, the way her parents had looked at me like I was dirt under their polished shoes. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. Not yet. Not until I had proof. Then, in early September 2024, I got it. I was at her place one night. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the bathroom. I wasn't trying to snoop, but it buzzed, and the screen lit up with a new message from Grayson. "Last night was amazing, babe," it read. "Same time tomorrow at my place." My heart stopped. I scrolled up, my hands shaking, and there it was, a whole thread of messages going back months, flirty texts, late-night meetups, even a photo of them together at some rooftop bar in downtown Detroit, her lips on his cheek. She'd been cheating on me since at least July, maybe longer. When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting there, her phone in my hand, my face blank, but my chest burning. "Caleb, what are you doing?" she snapped, reaching for the phone. But I held it up. "Last night was amazing, babe," I read out loud, my voice shaking with rage. "Who the hell is Grayson to you, Madison?" She froze, her face going pale, and for a second, I thought she might lie. But then she sighed, crossed her arms, and said the words that broke me. "I think we need to break up, Caleb. You'll never be enough for me or my family." Just like that, 4 years were over, and I was left holding the pieces of a life I thought we'd build together. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and my world was starting to crack under the weight of betrayal I didn't even see coming. By the summer of 2024, I'd been with Madison Harbor for almost 4 years, and I thought we were solid. But looking back, the signs were there. Little cracks in her smile, the way she'd pull away when I tried to talk about our future, the late nights she'd claim were just family stuff. I should have known something was off, but I was too busy chasing my dream of opening a luxury car garage to notice her slipping away. It started in July 2024, when Madison began acting different. She'd always been the type to bring me lunch at the shop in Dearborn. A little Whole Foods salad with a smile that could melt me on the spot. But those visits got shorter, her excuses flimsier. "Oh, I've got a thing with my mom," she'd say, or "I'm meeting some friends for drinks in Birmingham." I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her. But then I started noticing how she'd leave her phone face down, how she'd get real quiet when I asked about her day. One night, I saw a text pop up on her screen while she was in the shower. A guy's name, Grayson, with a message that said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." My stomach dropped. I didn't confront her right then. I told myself I was overreacting, that there had to be an explanation. But deep down, I knew. I tried to push it out of my mind, focusing on work instead. I was in the middle of restoring a '67 Shelby GT 500 for a big client, a project that had already gotten me some buzz in the Detroit car scene. I was so close to securing a loan for my dream garage, Brooks Performance, and I thought Madison was still in my corner. She'd always said she believed in me. How could I doubt her? But that text, it kept gnawing at me, a splinter I couldn't ignore. Then came the Harper family's annual charity gala in August 2024. This glitzy event they threw every year at their estate in Grosse Pointe to show off their money and save the whatever foundation. I'd always skip these things. Nothing's worse than being the odd man out among a bunch of trust fund babies who think changing their own oil is edgy. But this time, Madison insisted I go. "It's important to my family, Caleb," she said, her voice softer than usual, almost pleading. "You need to be there." Red flag number 1, and I missed it completely. I busted my ass that week to finish a client's Porsche GT3 early so I could make it. I even bought a new suit from Men's Warehouse, nothing fancy, just a step up from my usual Walmart clearance rack stuff. I spent 3 hours watching YouTube tutorials on how to tie a proper Windsor knot, trying to look like I belonged. The gala was at their ridiculous mansion just outside the city. Fountains in the driveway, valet parking, and enough crystal chandeliers to blind you. I recognized one of the valets, a guy named Jamal who used to work at Uncle Ray's shop. He gave me a quick nod, but I could tell he felt as out of place as I did. I walked in, tugging at my collar, already feeling like a fish out of water. Madison was stunning in this emerald green gown that probably cost more than my rent. Her blonde hair swept up in a way that screamed old money. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's when Grayson Whitmore made his grand entrance. This guy rolls up in a brand new Porsche GT3 RS, shark blue, straight off the showroom floor. Not a speck of dirt on it. He steps out in a $12,000 suit. I looked it up later. And a watch that probably cost more than I'd make in a year, with that trust fund baby haircut that screams, "I've never worked a real day in my life." I knew who he was right away. Grayson Whitmore, heir to Whitmore Luxury Automobiles, a chain of high-end dealerships across Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois. They'd sent us cars they couldn't fix a few times at Uncle Ray's, and I'd always thought their service was overpriced garbage. The irony hit me like a punch to the gut. Madison's mom, Mrs. Harper, practically sprinted across the room to greet him, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Grayson, darling, we didn't know you'd be here," she gushed. Total lie. I found out later they'd invited him on purpose. Her dad wasn't far behind, shaking Grayson's hand like he was the damn president. Next thing I know, they're steering Madison toward him, making sure they're seated together at dinner, while I'm stuck at the other end of the table, next to some cousin who kept talking about her summer in the Hamptons. I could feel the eyes on me. Madison's family, her friends, all these rich folks whispering behind their champagne flutes, probably laughing at the grease monkey. Who thought he could fit in? Dinner was torture. I had to sit there, sipping overpriced wine I didn't even like, listening to Grayson brag about his latest business ventures, all funded by his daddy's money, of course. "Just acquired a new dealership in Chicago," he says, swirling his glass like he's in a damn commercial. Planning to expand into the exotic car market. It's all about the luxury consumer mindset. I nearly choked on my tiny-ass portion of some French dish I couldn't pronounce. Coq au vin or some nonsense. This guy wouldn't know real car work if it bit him in the ass, but Madison's parents were eating it up. Her dad kept saying crap like, "That's the kind of forward-thinking the industry needs, Grayson." Her mom chimed in with, "You really understand what it takes to succeed, unlike some people who are just stuck in the garage." She shot me a look, her lips curling in a sneer, and I knew exactly who she meant. The whole time, Madison was different. She barely looked at me, her eyes glued to Grayson as he droned on about his vision for the luxury car market. She laughed at his dumb jokes, like when he said, "People who still buy American cars must love losing money." As if my entire career fixing Mustangs and Corvettes was a joke. Normally, Madison would have jumped in, talked up the custom work I'd done, bragged about the Shelby GT500 I restored that got featured in a local car mag. But that night, nothing. She just sat there, nodding, giggling, her hand brushing Grayson's arm a little too often for it to be innocent. I felt my chest tighten, that text from July flashing in my mind. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." After dinner, they had dancing. Some fancy ballroom stuff with a live string quartet. I'm not much of a dancer, unless you count the victory dance I do after nailing a tricky transmission rebuild, but I tried for Madison. We started dancing, her hand in mine, but I could tell she was distracted, her eyes darting toward Grayson across the room. Then, like something out of a damn movie, Grayson cuts in, all smooth with his prep school ballroom moves. "May I?" he asked, not even looking at me, like I was just some obstacle. Madison didn't hesitate. She let go of my hand, gave me this fake little smile, and let him pull her away. She didn't even look back. The rest of the night was pure hell. I stood by the bar, nursing an overpriced whiskey I couldn't afford, watching them dance, laugh, whisper to each other like I didn't exist. Madison's mom hovered around them, snapping pictures with her phone, cooing about what a gorgeous couple they made. Her dad clapped Grayson on the back, saying loud enough for me to hear, "Now that's the kind of man Madison deserves, not some dirty grease monkey who'll never amount to anything." The words hit me like a sledgehammer, each one a fresh cut. I wanted to storm over, tell them to shove their money where the sun don't shine, but I didn't. I just stood there, the whiskey burning in my throat, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. On the drive home, Madison was silent, staring out the window of my beat-up Mustang, the same car I'd poured my heart into fixing up years ago. I tried to lighten the mood, cracking a joke about Grayson being a walking stereotype with his daddy's money vibe. Normally, she'd laugh, maybe throw in a jab of her own. But this time, she turned to me, her eyes cold, and said, "He's actually really smart, Caleb. Maybe you could learn something from him, like how to actually succeed in life." Her words cut deeper than anything her parents had said all night. I gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She didn't answer, just turned back to the window, leaving me in a silence that felt heavier than the whole damn gala. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Madison started pulling away even more, always busy with some charity event or social function, events where Grayson always seemed to be too. "Just a coincidence," she'd say, but I wasn't buying it. I kept replaying that text in my head, the way she'd laughed with him at the gala, the way her parents had looked at me like I was dirt under their polished shoes. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. Not yet. Not until I had proof. Then, in early September 2024, I got it. I was at her place one night. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the bathroom. I wasn't trying to snoop, but it buzzed, and the screen lit up with a new message from Grayson. "Last night was amazing, babe," it read. "Same time tomorrow at my place?" My heart stopped. I scrolled up, my hands shaking, and there it was, a whole thread of messages going back months. Flirty texts, late-night meetups, even a photo of them together at some rooftop bar in downtown Detroit. her lips on his cheek. She'd been cheating on me since at least July, maybe longer. When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting there, phone in my hand. My face blank, but my chest burning. "Caleb, what are you doing?" she snapped, reaching for the phone, but I held it up. "Last night was amazing, babe," I read out loud, my voice shaking with rage. "Who the hell is Grayson to you, Madison?" She froze, her face going pale, and for a second, I thought she might lie. But then she sighed, crossed her arms, and said the words that broke me. "I think we need to break up, Caleb. You'll never be enough for me or my family." Just like that, 4 years were over, and I was left holding the pieces of a life I thought we'd build together. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and I thought I'd hit rock bottom when Madison cheated on me with Grayson Whitmore, but I was wrong. The real fall came after, when I lost everything I'd worked for, drowning in the kind of pain that makes you forget who you are. After Madison dumped me in early September 2024, I was a wreck. 4 years, 4 damn years gone, just like that. All because she decided I wasn't enough for her and her snobby family. I kept replaying those texts I found on her phone. "Last night was amazing, babe," Grayson had written, like I was nothing to her. Like our entire relationship was just a pit stop before she upgraded to a millionaire. Her words at the gala echoed in my head too. Her mom's sneer calling me a dirty grease monkey. Her dad saying I'd never amount to anything. And the worst part? The way Madison looked at me when she broke it off, like I was some pathetic loser she'd outgrown. I tried to hold it together at first, throwing myself into work to numb the pain. I was in the middle of a big project at the shop in Dearborn, a full suspension overhaul on a client's Mercedes AMG GT, the kind of job that could have put me on the map for high-end clients. But I couldn't focus. My hands shook every time I picked up a wrench, my mind stuck on Madison laughing with Grayson at that gala, her hand on his arm. Her parents fawning over him like he was some kinda king. I'd see her Instagram posts pop up on my feed, pictures of her and Grayson at some rooftop bar in downtown Detroit, captioned with crap like, "Living my best life," while I was sitting in my tiny apartment above the shop, staring at the wall till 3 a.m. One night, I messed up bad. I was working late on the Mercedes, trying to torque down a control arm, but I was so out of it, half drunk on cheap whiskey I'd stashed in my toolbox, that I stripped the bolt completely. The whole assembly had to be redone, and I had to eat the cost of the parts. Hundreds of bucks I couldn't afford to lose. The client was pissed, said he'd heard I was the best, but now he wasn't so sure. Word got around fast in the luxury car world. One screw up, and people start talking. I lost 2 more big jobs that week, guys who'd been loyal clients for years, saying they couldn't risk their cars with me anymore. It didn't stop there. I started drinking more, way more than I ever had before. I'd finish my shift at the shop, grab a bottle of Jack Daniels from the liquor store on 8 Mile, and drink till I couldn't feel the ache in my chest. One night in late September 2024, I got so wasted I decided to drive home. Stupid, I know, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was swerving down Gratiot Avenue, the streetlights blurring into streaks. When I nearly slammed into a pole at a red light, I jerked the wheel at the last second, my Mustang skidding to a stop on the curb, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. I sat there, hands shaking, the bottle of Jack rolling around on the passenger seat, and I realized how far I'd fallen. I could have killed myself, or someone else, and for what? Because Madison broke my heart? I didn't tell anyone about that night. Not Uncle Ray, not my mom, not even my buddy Jamal, who'd been checking in on me. But it wasn't the wake-up call I needed. Instead, I just kept spiraling. I started showing up to work late, hungover, my eyes bloodshot and my hands unsteady. Customers noticed. Hell, even Uncle Ray couldn't ignore it anymore. I'd been working at his shop since I was 15, and he'd always treated me like a son, but I was messing up too much. The final straw came in early October 2024, when I scratched a client's restored '69 Camaro, a cherry red beauty I'd spent weeks on, because I was too drunk to notice a loose wrench on my workbench. The client lost it, said I'd ruined his baby, and Uncle Ray had to comp the whole job to keep him from suing us. That Friday afternoon, Uncle Ray pulled me aside, his face heavy with a kind of pain I'd never seen before. He put a hand on my shoulder, his voice low. "Listen, kid, I love you like my own, but I can't let you work on cars like this. You're gonna hurt yourself, or someone else. Take some time, Caleb. Get your head straight." I didn't argue. I couldn't even look him in the eye. I just nodded, grabbed my toolbox, and walked out, the weight of his words crushing me. I'd lost the one thing I was good at, the one place that felt like home. With no job, the bills started piling up fast. I'd been saving every penny for years to open my dream garage, but I burned through it all in less than a month. Between botched jobs I had to fix for free, the drinking, and trying to keep up appearances on a few Tinder dates, I went on to feel less pathetic. By mid-October 2024, I'd missed 2 months of rent on my little apartment above the shop. I didn't even notice the late notices till my landlord called, saying I had a week to pay up or get out. I checked my savings account, $47.32. 4 years of busting my ass, gone. I had no choice but to move back in with my mom at 26. I showed up at her door in East Point with 2 duffel bags and a box of tools, feeling like the biggest failure on the planet. She didn't say a word about it, just hugged me tight and said, "Dinner's ready in an hour, baby." But later that night, I saw her in the kitchen, wiping tears from her eyes as she washed dishes, thinking I couldn't hear her quiet sobs. That broke me more than anything Madison had done. My mom had sacrificed everything to raise me right, working double shifts at the diner, skipping meals so I could eat, and now I was making her cry. I had to do something to keep from drowning completely. So I started taking any job I could find. I worked the day shift at AutoZone on Woodward, stocking shelves and selling spark plugs to suburban dads who'd look at me like I was a cautionary tale. At night, I delivered pizzas for Domino's, driving around in my beat-up Mustang, the car I used to be so proud of, now just a reminder of everything I'd lost. But the worst gig was the one I took as a valet at this fancy steakhouse downtown, Ruth's Chris on Gratiot, a place I used to dream of taking Madison to once I made it big. Now I was standing outside in a cheap polyester uniform, red vest and all, looking like a rejected Christmas elf, parking cars for the kind of people who'd never give me a second glance. Then came the night that broke me completely, October 15th, 2024. I was working the valet shift, freezing my ass off in the fall chill, when I saw it. That familiar Porsche GT3 RS, shark blue, pulling up to the curb. Out steps Grayson Whitmore, looking like a damn GQ model in his tailored coat. And then Madison, in a red dress that probably cost more than my car, her arm looped through his like they owned the place. She was wearing this tennis bracelet I'd seen Grayson post about on Instagram. A little gift for my girl, he'd captioned it. Like a slap in my face. Madison saw me. I know she did. But she looked right through me, handing me her clutch with that fake, practiced smile. Rich girls give the help. Grayson, though, recognized me. He smirked, pulling out his wallet, and handed me a crisp $100 bill. "Take good care of it, man," he said, his voice dripping with pity. "I know things have been rough for you lately. I wanted to shove that bill down his throat, to tell him I'd forgotten more about cars than he'd ever know, to scream that his daddy's money didn't make him a man. But I didn't. I took the money, my hand shaking with rage and shame, because I needed it. Mom's AC had been broken for weeks, and she wouldn't let me pay to fix it. But I knew that $100 would cover the parts. That night, after my shift, I sat in my Mustang in the empty parking lot, the $100 bill burning a hole in my pocket. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram like a damn masochist, and there they were, Madison and Grayson at Ruth's Chris, all smiles in a candlelit booth, looking like the perfect couple. Caption: date night with my everything. Comments from her rich friends: you deserve this, girl, and finally with someone on your level. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, 30 pounds of depression weight on my frame, dark circles under my eyes, my cheap valet uniform reeking of exhaust fumes. That was my rock bottom, right there, and I didn't know if I'd ever climb out. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and after clawing my way out of rock bottom to build a luxury car empire, I thought I'd left the pain of Madison's betrayal behind me. But I was wrong. Her cheating with Grayson Whitmore had broken me, but when she came crawling back, I realized I wasn't the same man she'd left behind. That night in October 2024, sitting in my beat-up Mustang outside Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, staring at that $100 bill Grayson Whitmore had thrown at me like I was some charity case, something inside me snapped. I'd hit rock bottom, 30 pounds overweight, broke, working a valet job I hated, watching my ex and her millionaire boyfriend live their perfect life while I drowned in mine. But here's the thing about hitting bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. I drove home that night, parked outside my mom's place in East Point, and walked straight to my old bedroom, ignoring her worried look as she watched her late-night reruns of The Golden Girls. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the stranger looking back at me. Unshaved, dark circles under my eyes, a cheap valet uniform that made me look like a damn Christmas elf. I didn't recognize myself anymore, but I made a decision right then and there. I wasn't gonna let Madison, Grayson, or her stuck-up family define me. I was done being their punching bag. The next morning, October 16th, 2024, I woke up at 4 a.m. First time I'd been up that early in months. Something felt different, like a fire had been lit under me. I grabbed my mom's old digital scale from the bathroom and stepped on it. 242 pounds. I put on 47 pounds of pure depression weight since the breakup, and it showed. My face was puffy, my clothes barely fit, and I felt like crap all the time. I put out my phone, deleted every food delivery app, unfollowed Madison and Grayson on Instagram. Hell, I blocked their asses and downloaded a calorie tracking app instead. Then I did something I hadn't done since high school football. I laced up my old Nikes, the soles practically falling apart, and went for a run. I made it 6 minutes before I thought my lungs were gonna explode, wheezing on the side of Livernois Avenue, while some early morning jogger gave me a pitying look. But I didn't care. I had nothing left to lose. No girlfriend, no social life, no reputation to protect. Just time to rebuild myself from the ground up. I made a plan, a real one, not some half-ass New Year's resolution I'd forget by February. Every day started the same. 4:30 a.m. wake up, protein shake. I learned about proper nutrition from YouTube videos, then straight to the gym. I couldn't afford a fancy spot, so I went to this grimy 24-hour joint in Warren, the kind with rusty dumbbells and a faint smell of sweat and regret. I'd lift weights till my arms shook, run on the treadmill till I couldn't breathe, picturing Grayson's smirk, every time I wanted to quit. By 7 a.m., I was at AutoZone for my day shift, stocking shelves and selling spark plugs to suburban dads. After that, I'd head to my valet gig at Roof's Chris, parking cars for the same kind of rich folks who'd laughed at me at the gala. At 11 p.m., I'd study business and marketing on my cracked laptop, watching free online courses till my eyes burned. Everything from how to write a business plan to how to market a luxury brand. Rinse and repeat, every single D. The first month was straight up hell. My body ached constantly. My legs screamed from the runs. My arms felt like they'd fall off after lifting. And I was hungry all the time because I'd cut out the late-night pizza and burgers. Living with my mom at 26 felt like the ultimate failure, especially when I'd hear her humming in the kitchen, trying to act like everything was fine. The valet job was a constant kick in the teeth. Every time I parked a Porsche or a Lambo, I'd think about how I used to be the guy people trusted to fix those cars, not the guy they tossed their keys to without a second glance. But I kept that $100 bill Grayson gave me pinned to my wall, right next to my bed, as a reminder of the humiliation I'd never let myself feel again. Every time I wanted to quit, I'd look at it and think about his smirk, Madison's cold words, her family's sneers, and I'd keep going. By month 3, things started to shift. I was down 25 pounds, my arms showing muscle definition I hadn't seen since high school, and I could run for 30 minutes without feeling like I was gonna die. Regulars at AutoZone started noticing. Guys who'd come in for oil filters would say, "Damn, Caleb, you're looking jacked. What's your secret?" I'd just shrug and say, "Hard work." But inside, I felt a spark of pride I hadn't felt in months. The biggest change, though, was in my head. Working at AutoZone turned out to have an unexpected perk. I got to talk to every kind of car guy in Detroit, from weekend warriors fixing up their Civics to serious collectors with classics like '67 Mustangs. I started listening, really listening to what they complained about. Dealerships overcharging for basic work, screwing up complex jobs, not understanding what luxury car owners actually wanted. Guys with Ferraris and Porsches kept bitching about chains like that. Whitmore Luxury Automobiles, Grayson's family business, saying they'd pay crazy prices for subpar service, and they wish there was a shop that got it right. The more I heard, the more I saw a gap in the market, a need for a garage that understood both the mechanics and the luxury vibe these guys craved. During one of my valet shifts at Ruth's Chris, I spotted it. A massive abandoned warehouse in Corktown, right between the wealthy suburbs and downtown Detroit. The previous owner had gone bankrupt during COVID, and the place was a mess. Broken windows, graffiti everywhere, probably a few squatters in the corners. But man, the bones were perfect. High ceilings, huge roll-up doors that could fit any car, and a location that screamed potential. Park across the street on my brakes, eating a protein bar in my Mustang, running numbers in my head, sketching layouts on a napkin. The asking price was $400,000, way out of my league, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That warehouse was my dream, and I was gonna make it happen no matter what. Then came the breakthrough. Late November 2024. I was working a valet shift when a beat-up Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled in. Yeah, that's a real thing. The owner, this old-school Detroit businessman named Mr. Garrett Langston, got out, looking frustrated as hell. He said the car was making a weird noise, and he'd already taken it to 3 dealerships, including Whitmore Luxury Automobiles, who'd charged him thousands and still couldn't fix it. I listened to the engine for a second and knew right away. It was a classic air suspension issue those models are known for. I told him my diagnosis, and he looked skeptical but desperate. "You think you can fix it, kid?" he asked. "Give me a shot after my shift," I said. He nodded, tossing me the keys. I spent 2 hours in that parking lot after my shift, fixing his car with the basic tools I kept in my trunk. When I fired it up, the noise was gone, and Mr. Langston's jaw dropped. He started asking about me, my background, my plans, why a guy like me was working as a valet. I laid it all out. How I'd been a mechanic since I was 15, how I'd built a rep in the Detroit car scene, how my ex had cheated on me with a rich dude and I'd lost everything, and how I wanted to open a luxury garage in that warehouse in Corktown to serve guys like him who were tired of getting screwed by dealerships. We must have talked for another hour, standing there in the cold, the Rolls-Royce purring like a dream. The next day he called me, told me to meet him at his office downtown. I showed up in my best clothes, which wasn't saying much. My hands still stained with motor oil, no matter how hard I scrubbed. Mr. Langston had a proposal. He'd help me secure a loan for the warehouse, plus $200,000 for renovations and equipment, in exchange for a 25% stake in the business and priority service for his car collection. 15 exotics, from Ferraris to Bentleys. But there was a catch. I had 3 months to prove I could run a business. I needed a full business plan, a marketing strategy. And I had to get back in good standing with the luxury car community. No pressure, right? I jumped at the chance. I spent every spare minute working on that plan, grabbing free business courses on YouTube, studying how high-end clients talked at my valet gig, learning what they valued, what made them trust a shop. I called in favors from every mechanic I'd ever helped, guys like Big Tony and Carlos from Uncle Ray's, to vouch for me and spread the word that I was getting back in the game. I kept hitting the gym, dropping another 20 pounds, and started dressing better. Not fancy, but clean, pressed clothes, even for the valet job. I changed how I carried myself, how I talked, not pretending to be someone I wasn't, but becoming the best version of who I could be. 3 months later, in February 2025, I walked into Mr. Langston's office, a different man. Physically, mentally, professionally, everything had changed. I slapped down a 100-page business plan I'd rewritten 12 times, complete with financial projections, a marketing strategy, and a renovation timeline for the warehouse. I had 5 luxury car owners ready to sign maintenance contracts, guys I'd won back through sheer grit and word of mouth. Mr. Langston read through it, leaned back in his chair, and looked at me for a long moment. Then he opened his desk drawer, pulled out a set of keys, and slid them across the table. The keys to the warehouse. He'd already bought it. "Saw you had it in you after week 2, kid," he said with a grin. "Just wanted to see how far you'd push yourself." That night, standing in my soon-to-be shop, covered in dust and cobwebs, I finally took that $100 bill down from my wall, not 'cause I was over the pain, but 'cause I needed space for the building permit that was gonna change everything. Renovating that warehouse was like bringing a dead car back to life. You gotta strip it down to the frame before you can build it back better. The first day I walked in as the owner, I found 3 homeless guys camped out in the corner office and enough pigeons to start a damn aviary. The roof leaked in 17 different places. The concrete floor was cracked worse than my ex's moral compass, but I didn't care. There's something therapeutic about tearing shit down to rebuild it right. I spent 2 weeks just demolishing interior walls, clearing out decades of industrial junk, swinging a sledgehammer till my arms burned. Mr. Langston thought I was nuts for doing the demo myself, but I needed this, needed to feel every piece of this place transform under my hands. The business plan called for 3 months of renovation, but I did it in 7 weeks, 18-hour days, sleeping on a cot in what would become the customer lounge, living off protein bars and gas station coffee. My mom would swing by with clean clothes and real food, telling me I was working too hard, but she didn't get it. This wasn't work. This was redemption. The floor cost me $50,000 to do right. Special epoxy coating that can handle oil spills and Bugatti tire marks. The lifts were another $100,000. But I got the good stuff. None of that cheap hydraulic crap that breaks down every other month. Every dollar was an investment in proving them wrong. Madison, Grayson, her whole damn family. Opening day wasn't some big event. No ribbon cutting, no champagne. I just rolled up the doors at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday in March 2025, with 5 appointments scheduled, all Mr. Langston's connections. By 8 a.m., I had my first real test. A Rolls-Royce Cullinan rolled in, the owner complaining about a weird noise in the suspension. Other shops, including Grayson's dealership, had quoted him $15,000 for a full system replacement. It took me 2 hours to diagnose and fix a loose actuator. $300 in parts, done. The guy's jaw dropped when I handed him the bill. He called 3 friends before he even left the lot. Word spread like wildfire in the luxury car community. There's this new shop in Corktown, run by a guy who knows his stuff, doesn't rip you off, and gets it right the first time. By week 3, we were booked solid 2 weeks out. I hired my first 2 mechanics, Big Tony and Carlos from Uncle Ray's days, who'd been itching to get into high-end work. I trained them myself, made sure they got my standards. No cutting corners, no overcharging just 'cause the clients got money. Then came the game changer. That '67 Shelby GT500 I'd restored a year earlier, the owner was a big shot in the classic car world. And he brought in his 1962 Ferrari 250 GTE, saying the last shop, Grayson's dealership, had botched the engine rebuild and wanted another $40,000 to fix their screw-up. I spent a week on that engine, staying up till 3 a.m. studying original Ferrari manuals, my hands black with grease. When I fired it up for the first time, that V12 sang like it was straight out of Maranello. I'll admit, I teared up a little. The owner was so stoked he featured us in his car club newsletter, and next thing I know, we're getting calls from collectors across the country. 6 months in, I had to hire 3 more mechanics. We built a rep as the shop that could fix the impossible. Cars that dealerships like Whitmore Luxury Automobiles couldn't touch. I started noticing a pattern. A ton of complaints about Grayson's family chain. They'd been cutting corners on tech training, figuring rich folks would pay whatever they charged. But their service was tanking, and high-end clients were jumping ship straight to us. By early May 2025, we had a 3-month waiting list. I expanded into the building next door, doubled our space, and installed a specialized Ferrari diagnostic system that cost more than my mom's house. Every day, I was proving Madison's family wrong, but I kept my head down. No social media, no flashy ads, just word of mouth and hard work. Then, one day in May 2025, that familiar shark blue Porsche GT3 RS pulled up. Not for service, just parked across the street while its owner hit up the new coffee shop next door. The paint looked dull, brake rotors showing heavy wear, and I could tell from the sound it needed a carbon cleaning bad. Grayson didn't even know who I was. He'd never bothered to look up the shop that was stealing his clients. 2 weeks later, he sent one of his dealership porters with the Porsche, saying it was running rough and their techs couldn't figure it out. The porter handed me the keys, clueless about who I was. I did a full inspection, carbon buildup, worn brake pads, transmission fluid that hadn't been changed in years. Classic signs of an owner who cared more about the badge than the car. I wrote up an estimate, $18,000 worth of work, and handed it to the porter. He called Grayson right there in my office, and I could hear the jerk through the phone. "That's ridiculous. Our service department said it just needs a tune-up." The porter shot back, "Sir, you told me to take it to the best shop in Detroit. This is that shop." Grayson showed up an hour later, probably thinking he could throw his weight around. He walked into my office, not recognizing me at first. I'd changed a lot in 7 months. Gained 30 pounds of muscle, grew a clean beard, wearing a tailored suit instead of my old mechanic coveralls. The moment he realized who I was, his face was pure gold. Shock, disbelief, anger, fear, and finally a grudging respect. He looked around my shop. 6 high-end cars on the lifts. 3 Ferrari certificates on the wall. A waiting list so long we'd stop taking new clients. "How?" he started to ask, his voice tight. "Hard work," I cut him off, leaning back in my chair. "Something your daddy's money can't buy." He tried to save face, mumbling about how we should collaborate, how his dealership chain was struggling and could use a partner. I wasn't interested in helping the guy who'd stolen my girl and laughed in my face. "Your car'll be ready in 2 weeks, I said, sliding the estimate across the desk. "Standard terms, 50% upfront. The best part? He paid. He had no choice. His rep was on the line, and his dealership couldn't fix the damn car. I'd won, and he knew it. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and after clawing my way out of rock bottom to build a luxury car empire, I thought I'd left the pain of Madison's betrayal behind me. But I was wrong. Her cheating with Grayson Whitmore had broken me. But when she came crawling back, I realized I wasn't the same man she'd left behind. It was mid-May 2025, and Brooks Performance was the hottest name in the Midwest luxury car scene. We had a 3-month waiting list, 6 high-end cars on the lifts at any given time, and a rep for fixing what other shops couldn't, especially Grayson's failing dealership chain, Whitmore Luxury Automobiles. I just expanded into the building next door, doubling our space, and installed a specialized Ferrari diagnostic system that cost more than most people's houses. Every day, I was proving Madison's family wrong. The same family that called me worthless trash and a dirty grease monkey at that gala back in August 2024. I dropped 45 pounds, packed on muscle, and traded my old mechanic coveralls for tailored suits that made me look like the boss I'd become. Life was good, better than good. I had a new girl, Lydia Stone, a former pro race car driver who now ran her own performance parts company, and we'd been together for 2 years. She was everything Madison pretended to be: smart, driven, real, with a fire in her that matched mine. Then, on May 15th, 2025, Madison walked back into my life. I was in my office at the shop, going over invoices for a client's McLaren P1 rebuild, when my receptionist buzzed me. Boss, there's a woman here to see you. Says her name's Madison Harper." My stomach dropped. Hadn't seen her since that night at Ruth's Chris 7 months ago, when she and Grayson had mocked me with that $100 tip while I worked as a valet. I thought about telling my receptionist to send her away, but part of me wanted to see what she had to say, wanted to see how far the mighty had fallen. "Send her in," I said, leaning back in my chair, steeling myself for whatever was coming. Madison stepped into my office, and damn, she looked different. Gone were the designer dresses, the flawless makeup, the air of untouchable confidence she'd always carried. She was in a plain Target sweater and jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face pale and tired. No tennis bracelet, no Prada bag, just a cheap purse slung over her shoulder. She looked broken, like the last 7 months had drained the life out of her. "Caleb," she said, her voice shaky, "can we talk?" I didn't say a word, just nodded to the chair across from my desk, keeping my face stone cold. She sat down, fidgeting with her purse, her eyes darting around the office, taking in the Ferrari certificates on the wall, the framed Entrepreneur of the Year award from a local business mag, the view of my shop floor where 6 luxury cars were being worked on. I made a mistake, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I never should have left you. I was wrong about everything. I raised an eyebrow, leaning forward, my voice low and sharp. Wrong about what, Madison? About cheating on me with Grayson for months behind my back? About dumping me because I'd never be enough for your family? Or about thinking you could just waltz back in here after all that? She flinched, tears welling up in her eyes. But I didn't feel a damn bit of sympathy. I was stupid, she said, her voice cracking. My family, they pressured me. They kept saying I needed someone established, someone who could give me the life I deserved. Grayson, he seemed like the answer. But I was wrong, Caleb. His family's broke now. Whitmore Luxury Automobiles tanked. They lost everything, and he's not the man I thought he was. She wiped her eyes, looking at me with this desperate, pleading stare. You're the real thing, Caleb. I see that now. Can't we try again? I let her words hang in the air for a moment, feeling a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. She was broke, desperate, and crawling back to me because her golden boy had fallen, exactly what she deserved after what she'd done. But before I could respond, the door swung open and Lydia walked in, looking like a total badass in her leather jacket and jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She'd just come from a meeting with her company's investors. She was killing it in the performance parts world, and I couldn't be prouder. Hey babe, she said, walking over to me with a smile, leaning down to kiss me right in front of Madison. The look on Madison's face was priceless, pure shock, mixed with a flash of jealousy that made her jaw clench. Lydia noticed Madison then, raising an eyebrow as she straightened up. Who's this? She asked, her tone casual, but with an edge that said she already knew this wasn't going to be a friendly chat. This, I said, standing up and putting an arm around Lydia, is Madison Harper, my ex. The one who cheated on me with a millionaire and thought I'd never amount to anything. Madison's face turned red, her eyes darting between me and Lydia, and I could see the gears turning in her head. She wasn't just here to beg for me back. She was jealous, and she didn't like seeing me with someone new, someone better. What came next? I didn't see it coming. Madison stood up, her tears drying fast, replaced by a bitter smirk. Oh, I see, she said, crossing her arms, her voice dripping with venom. So this is your little rebound, huh? What's her deal, Caleb? She some gold digger using you now that you've got money? I bet she's just here for the fame. Everyone in Detroit knows your shop now. She turned to Lydia, her tone icy. You know he'll never really get over me, right? I was his first love. You're just the consolation prize. Lydia didn't even flinch. She just laughed, a low, confident sound that made Madison's smirk falter. Sweetheart, Lydia said, stepping closer. I don't need to use anyone. I run my own company, Stone Performance Parts. Ever heard of it? We supply half the race teams in the Midwest. And as for being a consolation prize, I'm the one he's building a future with, not the ex who cheated on him with some trust fund baby, 'cause she couldn't handle a real man. Madison's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But Lydia wasn't done. She looked Madison up and down, her lips curling into a smirk of her own. Looks like you're the one who's desperate now, huh? What's the matter? Grayson's money run dry? So you thought you'd come sniffing around again? I stepped in before Madison could fire back, my voice cold as ice. You thought I was trash, Madison. Look who's crawling now. You made your choice when you cheated on me, when you let your family treat me like dirt, when you threw away everything we had for a guy who's now selling used cars in Ohio. I'm done with your gold-digging games. I pointed to the door, my jaw tight. "Get the hell out of my shop. Don't ever come back." Madison's eyes filled with tears again. But this time, I saw something else. Anger, shame, and a bitter realization that she'd lost me for good. She grabbed her purse, shooting Lydia one last venomous glare, and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Lydia turned to me, her smirk fading into a softer smile. "You okay, babe?" she asked, slipping her hand. Word got around fast after that. Detroit's a big city, but the car scene's a small world. Madison and Grayson were the talk of the town, but not in the way they'd hoped. Whitmore Luxury Automobiles was hemorrhaging clients. Turns out, cutting corners on service to save a buck doesn't sit well with guys who drop 6 figures on a car. Mr. Langston, my investor, sat on the board of several banks that held the Whitmore family's business loans. And after a little digging, prompted by a phone call from me, those loans got reviewed. By late May 2025, they'd been forced to sell off most of their dealerships just to stay afloat. Last I heard, Grayson was working as a used car salesman at some shady lot in Ohio, trying to hawk beat-up Hondas to college kids. Madison? She was still with him, but not by choice. Her whole life was built on his money, and now that it's gone, she's stuck. Her Instagram these days is a sad sight, all blessed with what matters posts, the kind people make when they're trying to convince themselves they're happy. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Lydia and I were stronger than ever. She'd moved in with me a month earlier, and we were already talking about getting married next spring. Maybe having the ceremony right here in the warehouse I'd turned into my empire. Brooke's performance wasn't just a shop. It was a symbol of everything I'd fought for. Proof that I didn't need Madison, her family, or Grayson's money to make it big. I'd built this with my own 2 hands, and no one could take that away from me. I'm Caleb Brooks, a 25-year-old mechanic from Detroit, Michigan, and the last year of my life has been a wild ride. One I'll never forget, full of betrayal, heartbreak, and a comeback that proved everyone who doubted me dead wrong. It's the evening of May 27th, 2025, and I'm standing in the middle of Brooke's performance, my luxury car shop in Corktown, watching the sun dip below the Detroit skyline through the big roll-up doors. The air smells like motor oil and fresh paint, and the sound of a Ferrari V12 humming on the lift fills the space like music. I've got a 6-month waiting list, 3 locations across the Midwest, and a reputation for excellence that money can't buy. This place, this empire is mine, built from the ground up with nothing but grit, sweat, and a fire in my belly that Madison's betrayal lit a long time ago. Looking back, I can still feel the sting of that night at the gala in August 2024, when Madison's family called me worthless trash and a dirty grease monkey right to my face. I can still see the texts I found on her phone, proving she'd been cheating on me with Grayson Whitmore for months. "Last night was amazing, babe," he'd written, like I was nothing to her. I can still hear her voice when she dumped me, saying I'd never be enough for her or her family. Her cold eyes looking at me like I was some kind of failure. And I'll never forget that night at Ruth's Chris in October 2024, working as a valet, when she and Grayson mocked me with that $100 tip, calling me a pathetic nobody, while I stood there in that cheap red vest, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. That pain, it cut deep, deeper than I can put into words. It broke me, sent me spiraling into a pit of depression, drinking, and self-destruction that nearly cost me everything. I almost crashed my car one night, drunk out of my mind, swerving off Gratiot Avenue because I couldn't see straight through the tears and the whiskey. I lost my job at Uncle Ray's, burned through my savings, and had to move back in with my mom at 26, watching her cry in the kitchen because she thought she'd failed me. But that pain, it was also the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to rebuild, not just my life, but myself. I turned that betrayal into power, that heartbreak into fuel, and I built something no one can take away. Madison and Grayson, they got what they deserved. After I turned Grayson's Porsche GT3 RS into a wake-up call, showing him just how far I'd come, his family's dealership chain, Whitmore Luxury Automobiles, kept spiraling. They'd been cutting corners for years, overcharging for shoddy work, and high-end clients were jumping ship left and right, straight to my shop. Mr. Langston, my investor, made a few calls to the banks that held their business loans, and by late May 2025, they'd been forced to sell off most of their locations just to stay afloat. Last I heard, Grayson's working as a used car salesman at some sketchy lot in Ohio, trying to push beat-up Civics on broke college kids. Madison's still with him, but not 'cause she wants to. Her whole life was built on his money, and now that it's gone, she's stuck. Her Instagram's a sad sight these days, all blessed with what matters posts, the kind you make when you're trying to convince yourself you're not miserable. Me? I'm on top of the world. Lydia Stone, my girl, is the real deal, a former pro race car driver who runs her own performance parts company, supplying half the race teams in the Midwest.